Halloween, where did it come from? Would somebody like to start reading this?
The Bible does not mention Halloween. However, both the ancient origins of Halloween and its modern customs show it to be a celebration based on false beliefs about the dead and invisible spirits or demons.
And there's two things here. There's ancient origins, that's way before, years and years ago, and then it's modern customs. So we're going to blend both of them together because you can't celebrate the Halloween, the modern Halloween, without celebrating the old Halloween, which is in Spanish would be, where you pray for the dead. Let's continue. It says, where did Halloween come from, and why here in the United States do we celebrate it? Okay, let's continue.
How and when did the holiday originate? According to the best available evidence, Halloween originated in the early Middle Ages as a Catholic vigil observed on the eve of All Saints' Day, which is celebrated November 1st.
Being an ex-Catholic, we were told that this was the Day of the Dead, or a time to visit the graveyards, the cemeteries. But the modern Halloween is going door to door receiving candy. All the kids love that. This is direct from the Catholic, and it's for the children of the Catholic Church. They start them pretty young, believing this. And then when the kids go door to door receiving candy, it's something very fun for them to do. But I want you to notice at the bottom, it says, how can we celebrate Halloween? Number one, they're told dress up like little saints. Number two, they're told visit the grave of our dearly departed. Number three says go to mass. That's the most important thing according to the church. Go to mass. Number four, we say a prayer, and this is for the dead. And this is taught to all the children at the Catholic of why we celebrate Halloween. El Dia de los Muertos, it's in Spanish. Let's continue.
It has become commonplace to trace its roots even further back in time to a pagan festival of ancient Ireland known as Samhain, pronounced Samhain, about which little is known. The prehistoric observance is said to have marked the end of summer and the onset of winter, and was celebrated with feasting, bonfires, sacrificial offerings, and a homage to the dead.
If you notice, it included the sacrificial offerings.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Was it animals or was it people?
Good question.
The sacrificial offerings, we really not told how far back this came. Did it came from the Canaanites? How far back did it come from? We know it. We know that we know Satan has his hand behind it. Let's continue.
The earliest documented customs attributed to Halloween proper grew out of the tandem observances of All Saints' Day, which is November 1, a day of prayer for saints and martyrs of the church, and All Souls' Day, November 2, a day of prayer for the souls of all the dead. Among the practices associated with Halloween during the medieval period was the lighting of bonfires, evidently to symbolize the plight of souls lost in purgatory, and souling, which considered of going door to door, offering prayers for the dead in exchange for soul cakes or other treats.
So it has to do with souls lost in purgatory. Interesting.
Huh.
You know, during the El Dia de los Muertos in Spanish, you bring pictures of your dearly departed to the mass, to the church, Catholic Church. Those that have passed away, bring their pictures because you're going to pray for them. For some reason, your prayer has the power to advance them from purgatory into heaven, according to this teaching. Let's continue.
Go ahead.
Purgatory is a temporary state, and no one staying there will remain there forever, nor will they go to hell. According to Catholic faith teachings, the actions of the faithful living on earth affect the fate of those in purgatory. We can help those in purgatory by offering prayers of suffering, almsgiving, works of penance, and indulgences.
Isn't that something? Maybe we don't need Christ, since your prayers can bring those that have passed away into heaven. Isn't that something?
Go ahead.
Let's continue.
Purgatory in scripture. One of the common scriptures used in connection with this doctrine is from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 15. If it is burned up, the builder will suffer loss, but yet will be saved, even though only as one escaping through the flames.
You know, it's interesting that I read the whole chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 3. I read the whole chapter and I didn't get nothing out of it about purgatory. But this is what they use. This is one of the verses they use to prove that there is a purgatory. I don't know what Bible this came from, but I used the King James Version. There's nothing there about purgatory. Let's continue.
The Bible warns, there must never be anyone among you who consults ghosts or spirits or calls up the dead. While some view Halloween as harmless fun, the Bible indicates that the practices associated with it are not. At 1 Corinthians 10, 20, and 21, the Bible says, I do not want you to be participants with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of the demons too.
The big difference. Let's continue with this one.
By the 9th century, Christianity had spread into Celtic lands, where it gradually blended with and supplanted older pagan rites. In 1000 AD, the church designated November 2nd as All Saints' Day, a time for honoring the dead. Celebrations in England resembled Celtic commemorations of Samhain, complete with bonfires and masquerades.
I wonder if the church still does bonfires. We know masquerades, but what about the bonfires? They sure do. If you notice, this is a big bonfire.
Wow.
This is in the El Dia de los Muertos. And it's sad that this woman here, this young lady, is there for some reason. It could be her mom, it could be her dad, husband, child, sister, brother, uncle, grandparents. I can't see the picture very close, but she's here with a tradition that she can help whoever's buried there. She needs to come in el Dia de los Muertos and light fires to help those in purgatory. You know, it's sad that they've been given this doctrine of devils, and many people have embraced it. You know, I feel sorry for this lady, and many like her. Let's continue. Okay, can we celebrate the feast days and Sabbath days, and also celebrate Halloween and Christmas? I mean, Halloween, there's nothing wrong with Halloween. I don't see nothing wrong with it. You go door to door, get candy. Why can't we celebrate the feast days and also the holidays, Halloween, Christmas, and so on and so? Well, being an ex-Catholic, when I started to learn about the seventh-day Sabbath, I kept thinking to myself, these people, they go to church too early. Why can't they wait till Sunday? And when I started to see that in the Bible, then I understood. Later on, I learned about the feast days. First, I battled against the feast days. I thought, no, that's wrong. But that's what I was taught. And when I started learning about it, it just completely changed me. Now, if I'm going to go back and celebrate Halloween, Christmas, this is what Paul's going to say to me. He wrote to me personally this letter. Let's continue.
Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son, and if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. Howbeit then, when ye know not God, ye did service unto them which by nature are no gods. But now after you have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn you again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto you desire again to be in bondage? Ye observe days, months, times, and years.
That picture we saw about that young woman at the cemetery, you think she's in bondage? Yes, she is. She believes that on this day, on Halloween, she needs to go to the graves, to the cemetery, and pray for those that have passed away. That's a weak and beggarly elements. She's in bondage. It's weak to celebrate that day. That's not true. What she's doing is not truth, the Bible.
Well, Abel, according to that picture, she wasn't alone, because you look at that picture, every one of those graves has candles.
Yes, yes. There are millions and millions throughout America. Let's continue.
Satan's suggestions are carried out in many, many things. Our birthday anniversaries and Christmas and Thanksgiving are too often devoted to selfish gratification, when the mind should be directed to the mercy and loving kindness of God. God is displeased that his goodness, his constant care, his unceasing love are not brought to mind on these anniversary occasions.
And that is true. You're not going to hear nothing about God during Halloween. All you're going to hear is about going door to door collecting candies.
And you know, Abel, when I was young, it's called trick or treat. And if you didn't get your treat, then you would do a trick. And one of them was you'd take soap and put soap on their window.
Oh, yes, yes. And I remember my mom would tell me, don't be eating no candies. You can have one tonight only. But before I got home, I had about 10 of them already. Let's continue.
We advise all our brethren and sisters to make a decided reform in regard to these festal days.
Isn't that something? To make a decided reform. We got to decide for ourselves. Is it right or wrong? Let's continue.
Keith,
Just a quick word regarding Santa. It should be plainly obvious to any follower of Jesus Christ that this Santa character is not only a lie, which is sin, but also takes the glory away from our Savior. Therefore, again, it should be plainly obvious to a follower of Jesus Christ that we tell our children the truth about Santa and turn away completely from him.
So anything that takes the glory away from the Savior, it's evil. It's no good. This is exactly what Halloween does. Okay, where did the tradition of wearing costumes for Halloween come from? So many costumes. You know that the costumes, when they first came out, they weren't so bad. Somebody would wear their mother's jacket, their dad's pants, or his hat. They would dress up with what they had at home. And all of a sudden, the costumes started changing little by little. We had witches, we had skeletons, we had more wizards and demons. Things started to change a little, and it kept getting worse. Then people started dressing more like demons. And finally, it got to a place where the name of the Halloween in Spanish, Dia de los Muertos, it got to a place where they look like they're dead. In fact, these people, these ladies here, the dead look better than they do. I mean, the costumes have gotten worse and worse, and we're headed back to where this Halloween started from, Dia de los Muertos. Pray for the dead. Let's continue.
According to the book Halloween, an American holiday in American history, some of the Celts wore ghoulish costumes so that wandering spirits would mistake them for one of their own and leave them alone. Others offered sweets to the spirits to appease them in medieval Europe. The Catholic clergy adopted local pagan customs and had their adherents go from house to house wearing costumes and requesting small gifts. The Bible, on the other hand, does not permit merging false religious practices with the worship of God, 2 Corinthians 6:17.
Yes, you can't mix them up. Now, let me ask a question. Is this costume going to protect this young girl from the demons?
No.
She's going to be protected from Satan? Of course not. This is not going to protect her. The only thing that protects us is the blood of Christ. It's the Father and the Son where protection is. This is not going to protect this little girl. And this is what she's being taught. Dress up, hide, so the wicked spirits cannot do you harm. Let's continue.
Thousands of Wiccans who follow ancient Celtic rituals still call Halloween by the ancient name Samhain and consider it to be the most sacred night of the year. Christians don't realize it, but they're celebrating our holiday with us. We like it, stated the newspaper US Today when quoting a professed witch.
Isn't that something? Christians celebrate it. And they don't realize it, what they're doing. Now, if these Christians have embraced Halloween, why don't they embrace the feast of the Lord?
Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts.
Isn't that clear? My feast. Whose feasts are they? Christ. Very simple to read. And it says they're holy convocations. Why are they holy? Because the Lord's there. They're his feasts. And it makes it very, very plain. These are mine. But as Christians, you know, they change what he says here. They get that my feast and they change it. Let me read the top one. Let me read this one. It says, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Jews. Many people believe that it's for the Jews only. They change it from my feast to the feast of the Jews. Others will speak at the bottom. They say, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts, that if you honor them, you dishonor me. Many Christians believe if you honor the feast, you're an antichrist. You're against Christ. Isn't that something?
I have a question, Abel. Then why do some churches have harvest festivals? Aren't those feasts?
Yes.
And It's the same as Halloween, just by a different name,
That's right.
right down to it.
That's right. Yeah, I was telling David a little while ago that we have a church about half a mile from here, the Lutheran church. Across the church, they have their school. And already the school has pumpkins all over it. But this church did not get together for tabernacles. Nobody was there. But they're getting ready for Halloween.
Abel,
Yes.
the one you just had on, where did that come from? Because at the bottom it says you dishonor me.
Okay, this is my interpretation. I put that on. This is what I've heard people say.
Oh, you've heard people say that you dishonor him. Okay.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out where that came from. It's like, what? Maybe it was a typo. Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but it's like they say you deny Christ. Okay.
That's it, yes.
But the thing of it is, the people that profess to be Christians find it a lot easier to go the ways of the world because they don't want to be different.
Right.
Because if you're different, then the world persecutes you. But the Bible says that he will have a peculiar people, which means we'll be different from the world. And if we're not different from the world, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Some
Okay.
of our
Thank you.
highly regarded speakers in the church have said that if you celebrate the feast, you're slapping Jesus in the face
Right.
because he fulfilled all those.
Yes.
Well, maybe the first four, but I don't know about the last three.
Well, Dave, you just brought up about a harvest in the book of Revelation. It says the harvest is ripe to
That's
be
right.
harvested. That's at the part of the three angels' message.
True.
Yes. Okay, where did the tradition of pumpkins come from? Let's continue this.
Pumpkins, carved, candlelit turnips were displayed to repel evil spirits. To some, the candle in the turnip represented a soul trapped in purgatory. Later, carved pumpkins were more commonly used.
What about the candy? Where did the candy come in? Halloween. And if you notice, a lot of candy nowadays, they got little ghosts painted on it, a witch, a wizard already on them for Halloween. So where did the candies come from?
Well, Abel, also the pumpkins you used to hollow them out and you used to put a candle in it. That's just like that woman at the graveyard.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
there are some of our Sabbath schools I have had people call me and tell me different things they do. And they were carving out the little pumpkins for the kids in Sabbath school and say, Jesus carves out the bad, and then you put Jesus in and they put the light in there. And I'm like, that's just so wrong. That's sad, but they do it, trying to make it okay, trying to change it.
Right. Wow. Wow. Okay. Let's continue.
The ancient Celts tried to appease wicked spirits with sweets. The church later encouraged celebrants to go from house to house on All Hallows Eve, asking for food in return for prayer for the dead. This custom eventually became Halloween's trick or treat.
Yes, isn't that some? What about the costumes? We talked a little bit about them. I wanted to put this up because if you notice, these three girls are wearing costumes for Halloween, but they're enjoying themselves. This is something they'll never forget. This is why Halloween is so dangerous. It gets the kids, it gives them candy going door to door. They have a lot of fun. So next Halloween, you think they're going to want to enjoy it again? Of course. This keeps going. The tradition keeps going and going because they made it a lot of fun. Sunday's going to be the same way. When Sunday enforcement comes, and it's for the family, they're going to make it joyous. So everybody's going to want to keep it. As long as you make the children enjoy it, the whole family will observe Sunday as a holy day. Very dangerous. Let's continue.
Costumes. The Celts wore frightening masks so the evil spirits would mistakenly think the wearers were spirits and would leave them alone. The church gradually amalgamated pagan customs with the feasts of All Souls and All Saints. Later, celebrants went from house to house wearing costumes of saints, angels, and devils.
What about the apples? Isn't apples good to eat? Yes, it is.
Yep.
Now, how did the apples come into Halloween?
The first was Feralia, a day in late October when the Romans traditionally commemorated the passage of the dead. The second was a day to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. The symbol of Pomona is the apple, and the incorporation of this celebration into Samhain probably explains the tradition of bobbing for apples that is practiced today.
Now, you've heard of that insurance company. You're in good hands with Allstate. Now, are we in good hands with our leaders? If you notice, Mrs. Nixon here, I think these might be her granddaughters. I'm not too sure. Either way, she's dressing them up in saints, in white, to be saints or angels. Well, in El Dia de los Muertos, you have individuals in white representing saints, but you also have death in the black with a skeleton. This is just another celebration of Dia de los Muertos. What about President Kennedy? You notice his children, you can't even tell who they are. They got the mask, you don't even know what they look like. Well, when they grow up, they're going to continue the custom. And they're going to look like this. And many of you that have probably seen those that are in prison today, many men that are in prison, they tattoo their faces now. They tattoo the whole body. And even women are doing it. But these men in prison, I've seen many tattoo their forehead, their cheeks, their around the eyes, and they're starting to look like this. And with that tattoo they're putting on, they're going to look like this all year round. Mm-hmm. What about the daughter of Richard Nixon? If you notice, the children don't have any masks, so she's giving them the mask. Let's continue.
Keith?
Did God authorize this change? Catholic Record of London, Ontario, September 1, 1923. Sunday is our, that's the Vatican's, mark of authority. The church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath from Saturday observation is proof of that act. The Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine, 50. We observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church in the Council of Laodicea, which is in AD 336, transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday.
You know, isn't this something? When the church changed the day from Sabbath to Sunday, they told the people they had to worship on Sunday. But you know, Halloween, the church did not force anybody to keep Halloween, yet all the Protestant churches are keeping Halloween. And they weren't even told to do it. But if you follow the wrong individual, it's like sheep going astray. You're gonna do whatever that individual or that church does. Even if that church does not make you do it, you're gonna do it because the church is doing it. This is very, very dangerous to follow a false shepherd. Okay, Betty Ford and her secretary, they're dressing up a skeleton. You know, you start small, something like this, that's you probably say, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just a skeleton in somebody's jacket. But you know that this will lead to this. This is an altar of the dead, el Dia de los Muertos in Spanish. It doesn't take much. You go little by little, and before long, you end up with this, an altar to the dead. What about Bill and Hillary Clinton? You can see this is probably the White House. I've never been in it, so I don't know if it is or not. But they're having a party, Halloween party. What do you do when you have Halloween parties at your house? This is what happens. It says All Souls Day, Day of the Dead, how to create an altar to honor and pray for the departed souls. That's when you make a Halloween party at home. You've created an altar. You got to be very careful about that. What about this president? He made a pretty good size Halloween party. Yeah, it's Mr. Obama. I always hear about Obamacare. Well, he's taking care of this Halloween pretty good. Him and his wife giving out candies. And you know, behind the Halloween tradition, especially in Mexico, a lot of the Aztec ways came into it. The Aztec Indians would always talk to the dead. If you notice in the back, that comes from those tribes in South Africa. And if you notice this gentleman here, you see what he's got in his hand? Isn't that what Moses had? Moses was given this as authority from God. Now, I wonder if this man would receive this staff here from the Lord, giving him authority to celebrate el Dia de los Muertos. I don't think so. I don't think that staff has anything to do with Christ. What about today, our president of today? It says Halloween at the White House, 2017. Do they believe in the El Dia de los Muertos? They sure do. If you look at the pumpkins, or they're supposed to be pumpkins, you'll see the faces of all the dead presidents. Isn't that something? Why would they have the faces of dead presidents if they're only honoring Halloween, which is going door to door receiving candies? What does that have to do with dead presidents? Isn't that something? And of course, if you're going to keep Halloween, you need to teach the kids so they can keep it going. Year after year, they can keep Halloween going. These kids will never forget being here. They're going to remember it every year, and every year they want to keep Halloween again and again and again, not knowing what it really represents. Let's continue.
The origin of Halloween can be traced to this ancient pagan festival celebrated by Celts people over 2,000 years ago, states the World Book Encyclopedia. The Celts believed that the dead could walk among the living. At this time, during Samhain, the living could visit with the dead.
Isn't this something Ellen White warned us about in the last days? That those that we believe are our kids, our parents, our mom, dad would come to us and talk to us, that the dead would talk to us? This is something she warned us about. She said there were evil angels personating loved ones, and they would talk to you. But we're protected because we got the blood of Christ and we got the truth in our hearts and our minds. Let's continue.
But what about the Halloween traditions and beliefs that today's trick-or-treaters have forgotten all about? Many of these obsolete rituals focused on the future instead of the past, and the living instead of the dead.
There was many that didn't want to participate in the Dia de los Muertos. So they had to change a few things back then and try to get everybody involved. So what they did is something like this.
In particular, many had to do with helping young women identify future husbands and reassuring them that they would someday, with luck, by next Halloween, be married. In 18th century Ireland, a matchmaking cook might bury a ring in her mashed potatoes on Halloween night, hoping to bring true love to the diner who found it.
So they're trying to bring everybody in. Let's continue.
In Scotland, fortune tellers recommended that an eligible young woman named a hazelnut for each of her suitors and then toss the nuts into the fireplace. The nuts that burned to ashes rather than popping or exploding, the story went, represented the girl's future husband. In some versions of this legend, the opposite was true. The nut that burned away symbolized a love that would not last.
Isn't that something? I think the women were the nuts.
Wow.
Let's continue.
Well, poor people would visit the houses of wealthier families and receive pastries called soul cakes in exchange for a promise to pray for the souls of the homeowner's dead relatives. Known as souling, the practice was later taken up by children who would go from door to door asking for gifts such as food, money, and ale. And ale? Wow. Give me some beer.
You know that Satan tries to copy the Lord. If you know that soul cake, it looks pretty close to unleavened bread. Isn't that something? Satan is right there trying to copy what the Lord does.
But I'm sure it's full of sugar.
Oh, yes, yes. Let's continue.
Historians have linked Halloween to Samhain, the Celtics festival of the summer's end celebrated in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. According to Celtic mythology, the veil between the other world and our world thins during Samhain, making it easier for spirits and the souls of the dead to return.
You know, many Christians believe that. Remember the story of the certain rich man and Lazarus, where he told Abraham, send Lazarus to his brothers. And many people believe that there is a hell because that story proves that the rich man is suffering in fire. So they believe there is a thin veil between the other world and heaven. Isn't that something? Okay, how did Halloween come to the United States? Let's continue.
In the United States, the origins of Halloween start with the early settlers. When early American settlers came from England, many of them brought various beliefs about ghosts and witches with them. In the 1800s, many immigrants from Ireland and Scotland arrived in the United States and introduced their Halloween traditions. Other groups added their own cultural influences to Halloween customs. German immigrants brought a vivid witchcraft lore, and Haitian and African people brought their native voodoo beliefs about black cats, fire, and witchcraft.
Isn't that something? The United States got bombarded from both sides. Through Mexico, many of the traditions came, and then many from immigrants coming through New York City. So the United States got bombarded from both sides, from the south, from the east, who knows, even from the west. Now, what makes the Halloween so nice What makes Halloween so friendly like? Well, it's going door to door candies, but also the stories associated with Halloween. I'm gonna show you one story that I got, and this is many times told during Halloween. It's to scare the kids, and the kids enjoy that. Let's continue. This is a story.
The carved pumpkin may have originated with the witch's use of a collection of skulls, with a candle in each to light the way to coven meetings. But among the Irish, who, as noted, prompted the popularization of Halloween in America, the legend of Irish Jack explains a jack-o'-lantern. According to the legend, a stinky drunk named Jack tricked the devil into climbing an apple tree for an apple, but then cut the sign of a cross into the trunk of the tree to prevent the devil from coming down. Jack then forced the devil to swear he would never come after Jack's soul. The devil reluctantly agreed.
Yes.
Let's continue.
Jack eventually died, but he was turned away at the gates of heaven because of his drunkenness and life of selfishness. He was sent to the devil, who also rejected him, keeping his promise. Since Jack had no place to go, he was condemned to wander the earth. As he was leaving hell, he happened to be eating a turnip. The devil threw a live coal at him. He put the coal inside the turnip and has since forever been roaming the earth with his jack-o'-lantern in search of a place to rest. Eventually, pumpkins replaced turnips since it was much easier to symbolize the devil's coal inside a pumpkin.
This is exactly what the kids like to hear. They like to get scared. This is what makes Halloween so enjoyable for the kids. All the candy, all the stories, the costumes. It's just so much put onto them, but the real reason they don't understand why they're celebrating Dia de los Muertos, that you can actually talk to the dead. They come back to converse with you. This is a very dangerous doctrine. Now, before I close, I want to give anybody a chance to let us give us what you've learned throughout your life about Halloween. Does anybody have any comments?
Go ahead.
Abel, I would like to share a story with everyone this morning. When I was a little girl, I was only about 6 years old, and my parents, they didn't celebrate Halloween. So on that night, they would keep all the lights out and with no decorations outside at all. I remember 6 years old getting up the next day and all of our cars and house was egged. To a point of even damaging, the paint on the cars and everything. But when you're 6 years old and you're looking at this, you learn to become frightened of Halloween, that it might be a day you can be harmed.
Wow.
Yes.
Are we still on?
That's really sad. I can remember, I don't know, it was a few years ago, and everybody knows Dobson was his name, the family.
James Dobson.
Yeah, the one that does all the preaching stuff for the family. And he was telling people to go ahead, and he even had a whole slideshow and everything about how you can go ahead with Halloween. It's not what people think. We need to just dress up like, if you're a skeleton, you're a martyr. If you're, they will be good things, but decorate and make it religious. And I'm like, that's just not right.
Yeah.
Abel, you mentioned a while ago about tattoos. And several years ago, I read this article and it showed the picture of this guy and he really looked weird. He even tattooed the whites of his eyes black.
Yeah.
And I forgot how long it was, but they gave it a Lincoln for a period of time. His eyes bled black ink. but it made him look devilish.
Oh,
Oh, they do it.
wow.
Just think now, devil's got 50% or more of us wearing masks every day.
Yes.
So wearing masks every day, is that a trick or is that a treat?
Good. I'd say it's a Satan's trick, but
Wow.
I don't see a treat in it.
Hey, talking about you were talking about the food and stuff, offering fruit and apples and whatnot to gods and goddesses and how that comes together. You know, when we were in Illinois, lived in Illinois for a while, we had a big population of Indian people from India, and they would come over to do a lot of programming and whatnot for like Caterpillar and stuff. And they'd come straight over and they would bring their culture and their thoughts. And I would see them all the time with, you know, they have their religion, their ideas, and they would park their cars in all the parking spots in the apartments, lots of apartments, lots and lots of Indian people. And they would have lemons hanging from their car, or they would have spicy foods hanging, or they would put them on their doors at their apartments, or they put them on the ground at the door, at the foot of their door. And so I finally had to look into it, and it's all the same thing you're talking about. It all comes about by offering spicy foods to certain goddesses to ward them off from you, or to offer sweeter foods to gods and goddesses to bring them closer for protection. So even today, people still do these things that seem really wild, but people really, really believe them even today. So they're here very much, and so is Halloween, and so is, you know, the people who believe Halloween to be the most sacred day of the year and do very wicked things on that day. And, you know, we should not have any part of those things, like you're saying. But there are many other days that we can be a part of that are much more lovely and wonderful to be a part of. So anyway, yeah, very true, Abel. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't go trick or treating anymore because my wife said she divorced me. So